All right, this is going to be a quick demo of how to use this B2C refresh course sample for testing the PKCE authorization code flow. So you should already have this URL open in your browser to start this demo. Once you have it open in your browser, you can take a look at the README section right here, which is going to list out all the steps that I'm about to go through. So the first is the prerequisites, where you need to have a B2C tenant, and you need to have a app registration registered in your B2C tenant. So what that will look like once you're finished is you'll have in your B2C tenant under app registrations, you will have created an app registration. And under the authentication section, you want to make sure that it has two redirect URIs registered under the single page application option. Once you have those two redirect URIs registered, from the overview section, you just want to note what your client ID is. And then finally, you need to have a B2C policy ID, which you can get from your user flow section. So the name of your policy, you need to have that. And then finally, once you have all of that, you need to go to this sample website or any sample website that can generate a PKCE code for you. So that's this website right here, where if you just click generate, you're going to get a pair of values, a code verifier and a code challenge. So you want to have those for later on as well. Going back to the sample, to get started, you need to actually sign in to Postman. So if you don't already have an account, just sign up for free, because without doing that, you're not going to be able to customize these samples. So I'm going to sign in with a Postman account that I already created. And once you've signed in, you should be able to click the three dots here under the README section and click Create a Fork. So creating a fork is going to basically copy this sample collection into your own Postman workspace. Once you've done that, you should now have the ability to edit the values of these sample requests. So we're going to start the repro steps here. So the first step is to go to the request authorization code sample request and start customizing these values. First, you want to update the tenant name from Contoso to whatever your tenant name is. And then you want to update the parameters tab. Has a bunch of parameters that you're going to update to be specific to your B2C policy and tenant. So first, the P parameter is going to match the user flow name that you have in your tenant. The client ID is going to match what you have under app registrations that we just looked at. Right here. And then you don't need to customize the scope, response type, or prompt values unless you want to, but you do need to customize the code challenge value, and that's going to match the PKCE code generator code challenge. So I'm going to update that real quick. And then you don't need to customize these values either. Once you've got these 1, 2, 3 parameters updated, as well as the tenant name to be specific to your tenant, then you can just, for this first request, you have to do it in your web browser. So just copy this entire value and open it up in your web browser. Just paste that whole value. And if it works, then you'll be showing your B2C policy sign-in screen where you can sign in or sign up with any account that you have in your B2C tenant. Once you sign in successfully, you should be redirected to the OIDC debugger website, which will show you the authorization code that was generated for you to use. So just copy that to your clipboard by clicking this button here. And then going back to Postman, we're done with this request. We got the authorization code. So we're going to go to the second sample request. And same thing, you need to make sure that the tenant name is your tenant. So Contoso needs to change to whatever your tenant's name is. So those two spots there you need to customize in the URL. And then same thing, these parameters from the parameters tab, you need to make sure that the P value is your B2C user flow name. Grant type you can leave the same. The code parameter is going to be the authorization code that you got from this website from the first request. Just copy that and you're going to paste that into this code parameter. Make sure you delete everything that's already there and paste everything that you got from the debugger website. So once you've updated that, the next thing you need to update is the client ID. So that's going to be whatever you got from your app registration. And the code verifier is going to be what you get from the code verifier section of this website. So this value. And just to note, this is different from what you used on the previous request, which was the code challenge. So copy the code verifier, go back to Postman, update this last parameter to be that code verifier value. Once you've updated those things, the tenant name, your policy, the authorization code, the client ID, and the code verifier, this request you can actually just hit send in Postman. And if it was successful, you'll see in the body response section here that you've been issued a ID token and a refresh token, which if you wanted to, you could take the value of the ID token and go to like jwt.ms and decode that to make sure that you got a ID token. So once you've done that, you've pretty much verified that your policy and everything's working as expected. If you want to continue the demo, you can also use this third sample request, which is how you would test exchanging a refresh token, which is what you got in the second request right here, this parameter, exchanging this refresh token for another token or another refresh token. So for the third sample request, you want to have this refresh token copied to your clipboard because you'll use that in this third sample request where you are exchanging the refresh token that you were granted in the second request for a new token. So in this sample request, you need to do the same thing, update tenant name, in the URL, make sure that your policy is updated to be whatever your user flow name is. You don't need to update the grant type, but you do need to update the refresh token. So basically delete everything that's in the sample and paste the value of the refresh token that you got in your second request right here. So we're just copying that value to this parameter. Once you've done that, you don't need to update the redirect URI, but you do need to make sure that the client ID matches the client ID of your app registration. And then the code verifier you need to make sure is what you have here. Once you've done that, you can just test it out by hitting send. And if it was successful, you should have another ID token and another refresh token. And that should be all successful. A couple things to point out, and they're all kind of pointed out in this README section. But the key to PKCE is that you have generated a unique code verifier and code challenge, because those are like cryptographically unique and related to each other. So if you generate another code challenge and code verifier, you need to make sure that you're going back to the original request and updating this code challenge. Otherwise, if you try to use a code verifier that was generated for a different code challenge in the later request, then you'll get an error. I can probably just demo what that would look like by changing any of these values. So if I change that, you're going to see an error that says the supplied code verifier is invalid. And that's because this authorization code was generated using this code challenge. So you'd have to go back and make sure that you're using the right code generator values here. All right, and that's pretty much it. Thanks.